camps. People discussing, even the article, the flame throwing amongst some of the camp members. We could take it chronologically. I don't know who would go first, but
I think that they easily the most important development has been with the Peter Obi Labour Party campaign. So of course there was that now famous or infamous episode that Obasanjo wrote, which he addressed to Nigerians and said particularly to Nigerian youth. And as those of you who have been listening to us know, the spirit of this podcast is actually directed toward the youth. We have always said from the very get-go that we want to speak to the youth. We want to emphasize that this is their country, that they are the most numerous demographic in Nigeria. It's about their future. It's also about their present. And we've always emphasized that the youth ought to seize the moment. That the time when we'll say that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow is long past. And that saying has become something of a fraudulent deflection. When I speak to young people these days, I say to them that they are the leaders of today. This is the moment. This is their moment. So Obasanjo addressed his letter, particularly to young people, he said. And in that letter, he stated that he looked at the various campaigns and he decided that Peter Obi of the Labour Party has, in his own words, the edge. It's not surprising. I think that that's sort of the sentiment in the country, that in an imperfect field, Peter Obi is the most alive, the most, as I've said ad nauseum, intellectually exciting candidate. He's a candidate who has excited young people the most. And it is not a surprise that in the reputable polls that have come out of the country, that he seems to have an edge. Now, how this is all going to translate into the elections is it's a subject for continued analysis and conversation on this podcast and in circles in Nigeria. Now, I would like us to talk about what does Obasanjo's endorsement mean, because anybody again who's been listening to me or who's read my columns over the years will know that I'm very, very, to say the least, ambivalent about Obasanjo and what he represents in Nigeria. But I sort of found it interesting that all the campaigns had lobbied for Obasanjo's endorsement. When Obasanjo finally cast his lot with Peter Obi and the Labour Party, these parties that didn't get his endorsement turned around and basically said, you don't count, your endorsement is irrelevant. There is a point to it. I don't think that people go to vote and they say, Obasanjo has told us this is his favorite candidate, so this is who we're going to vote for. In fact, I think that properly understood that Obasanjo is the architect of this tragedy that we have in Nigeria, both from when he was president and an imperial president. Obasanjo had the opportunity to set Nigeria on a different footing, and I think that Obasanjo made calculated, grave and tragic moves that Nigeria has not recovered from. In fact, moves that have been then compounded by his successors. And so Nigeria is in a particularly bad place. So one way I look at it is, Obasanjo should not, Obasanjo is part of the problem for me. And yet, I think that he has some political capital. I think that some people listen to him both within Nigeria and abroad. So his endorsement has meaning. I don't think that he brings a lot of electoral capital to any campaign, but he does bring visibility. He brings a conversation around any campaign that he supports. You know, he has that kind of name. You know, I also think that Peter Obi must understand, and there's this brilliant article by Azo Ishekwene, the editor-in-chief of Leadership Magazine, which I read in Premium Times publication. That piece spoke my mind. It just broke down the Obasanjo phenomenon, and he said that in a sense, this is Obasanjo trying to atone for grievous missteps that he'd made over decades in the country's history. So, this is my opening salvo on what the Obasanjo campaign endorsement of Peter Obi and the Labour Party means. I also think, actually, in a lot of ways, that Edwin Clark's endorsement of Peter Obi, in my mind, had more of a heft and a significance to it. I think that over the years there has been some measure of mutual suspicion between the Igbo and, if you like, the Niger Delta, you know, the minority groups in the Niger Delta, and some of that mistrust is rooted in the history of the Nigerian Civil War. But over the years, especially in the Jonathan presidency, there was a healing of that rift. And I think that the fact that Jonathan has expressed his affection for Peter Obi in very practical ways, and now that the endorsement came from Edwin Clark, I think is something that perhaps is going to cement this reconciliation, this coming together of the Southeast and what is called the South-South, which, as I've continued to say, is a misnomer. There's nothing called South-South. It's tautological, actually, to say South-South. You can have East-East, North-North, you know. So the South-South is actually part of the Southeast, you know. And so I think that this consolidation, perhaps, of the Niger Delta and Peter Obi as a candidate who happens to be Igbo, representing, carrying the ticket of the Labour Party, for me is far more significant in terms of electoral import than Obasanjo's endorsement. Well, those are my opening thoughts.